This happened to me when I was around 16 or 17 in the early 80s. I was living with my mum in Margate, a seaside town in Kent, England. A girl was raped in a large park in the centre of town. This is horrific enough, but it happened at gunpoint. Gun crime is mercifully pretty rare in the UK outside of major cities, so this caused a real outcry. Anyway, the guy was never caught, so just about every woman was carrying a rape alarm. We were living in a ground floor apartment in a pretty quiet part of town. It was on a really long, straight street, and my boyfriend lived about 200 yards away. If I was going to his place, he would stand outside his house and watch me coming, and when I left, he would stand outside and watch until I got to home. Don't ask me why, he just couldn't walk me there and back. Chivalry wasn't his strong point. I should explain a bit about the layout of the outside of the apartment. There were French windows leading from the living room out into a tiny courtyard. A main road formed the back of this courtyard, and it was pretty steep. I'm not saying you couldn't access it, but you'd have to be pretty determined. I knew that someone had accessed the courtyard in the summer because I'd had some underwear stolen off the washing line. I was 17 and nothing bothered me. I had just laughed this off rather than think it was creepy. The only other access was a 7-foot-high wooden gate that was always kept locked. The only other access to the apartment was the front door. Anyway, my mum was out and not due home until late. I always kept the front door and the French windows locked when I was home alone. I had just been sitting watching TV, and when it got to about 11 PM, I decided to go to bed. I had literally, and I mean literally, just switched the main light out when someone started rattling the handles of the French windows. I immediately turned the lights back on, and the rattling stopped. Fuck, someone was out there. The curtains were closed, and there was no way in God's earth I was going to open them. We had no telephone in the apartment, so I couldn't call the cops, my mum, anyone. I shut myself in the bedroom and pushed the bed against the door. Those French windows were pretty flimsy, and locked or not, all it would take was for someone to give them a hard shove and open them. I didn't hear anything else, but I wasn't going to investigate. My mum came home about an hour later and went to the phone box to call the cops. They came out and took a statement, but there was no evidence that anyone had been out in the courtyard. I brushed the incident off as a bit weird, but hey, nothing I could really do about it. The upshot was that a few months later, the rapist was caught. He was a 19-year-old guy who lived right next door to us. He would have known that there was a 17-year-old girl living in our apartment, and that she was quite often alone in there. So much for my boyfriend thinking I was safe walking 200 yards at night. When he was interviewed by the police, they asked whether he knew me, and he just laughed and said, "Oh yeah." So, creepy rapist guy who tried to get into our apartment that night? Let's hope we never meet. When I was 20, I joined the Royal Air Force. Our 6-week basic training was at RAF Swinderby, a godforsaken rain-swept wilderness in Lincolnshire, England. All us trainee girls lived in one grim grey block, appropriately enough called Grey Block, after some important RAF guy or other. We all slept about 8 to a dormitory, and there were 6 dormitories, so there were quite a lot of us living there. We all had to take turns being duty airwomen, once during our basic training. It meant we were responsible for checking that everyone was in the block, as opposed to any of the airmen's blocks, and in bed by around 11 PM, and that the doors were locked. Although we all slept in dormitories, the duty airwoman had a room to herself, just for that one night. Anyway, it was my turn. I was enjoying the luxury of having some time on my own. I spent the evening reading and listening to music, and after I checked everyone was where they should be, I locked the doors, one at the front and one at the back, and went to bed. Around 1 AM, I was woken by the sound of footsteps. This wasn't someone sneaking around. They were the clear sound of measured footsteps. A man's heavy footsteps. The distinctive sound of a man wearing RAF-type shoes on highly polished linoleum flooring. Then I heard the heavy internal double doors swing open and closed. Shit, there's a man in here. I jumped out of bed and ran to the hallway, but there was no one out there. I checked the laundry and even the bathroom, cautiously pushing open the doors of every bathroom stall. Nothing. I went upstairs, again checking all the communal rooms, but the place was totally still, sleeping. I went back to my room thinking that my imagination was playing tricks on me. Then about 30 minutes later, I heard it again. Exactly the same, a man's heavy footsteps and the internal door swinging open and shut. I should point out that I didn't think this was something spooky. To be honest, I wondered if it was some sort of test to check the dirty airwoman was on ball. The block was fairly large, and even though there were close to 50 girls living in there, pretty spooky in the dark. I went and woke up my friend Lizzie. "Lizzie, I'm sure there's a man in the block, but I can't find him. Please come and check with me." Poor Lizzie was still more than half sleeping as she trailed me round, checking in the dorm rooms, the laundry room, the TV room. Nothing. All the doors and windows were locked, and no sign that anyone who shouldn't have been there had ever been there. I went back to my room, and throughout the night I heard the footsteps, the door swinging open, but I just thought to hell with it, and tried to sleep as best I could. The following morning, I had to report to the corporal. "So, everything was okay? Nothing untoward?" she asked. I felt like a bit of an idiot, but I told her the whole story. The footsteps, the doors, dragging poor Lizzie out of bed. "No, I wouldn't worry," said the corporal with a laugh. "That'll be the ghost. No idea who he is, or more specifically, was, but he frequently kept a duty airwoman awake. He's probably an old warrant officer who wants to make sure you WAAFs are doing your job. Well, whoever he was, he certainly made sure I was on the ball that night. To be honest, I wasn't afraid. I had genuinely thought that it was a flesh and blood man wandering around, and I was more annoyed than anything. The idea of a ghost, though, doing the rounds, that was pretty cool. Okay guys, so yet another change to the schedule. I will be uploading twice a week, Monday and Friday-ish. Not Monday and Friday necessarily, though possibly not. Monday and Friday, possibly Tuesday and Saturday. Monday, Friday-ish. Okay, because I've been on it for 2 weeks now and it's not been going perfectly. It's been alright, but you know, life, you know. Anyway, I just want to thank Miss Molko for the submissions. If you have any submissions of your own, then be sure to use the email address in the description and send them to me at thefearsubmissions@gmail.com and I'll be sure to read them out. Anyway guys, thanks for listening and I'll see you in the next one.